share my screen. I wanted to cover this topic. It's something I've not covered in a while, and thought maybe, this is really kind of in general a great topic for selling and recruiting. More importantly, I think is probably one of the better topics to talk about when it comes to relating to your team. And, because communication is key to everything, man. Like Andy Albright says, communication is the lubrication of success. So I'm going to give you sort of a model to think about, that the LUV model, LUV. It's a simple model. It's a way to, I think, can really help you, like a mnemonic that can help you learn. And these are, very tried and true practices. It's just that sometimes we forget to implement them. So this LUV model is really good way to think about it and reinforce when you're talking to your clients, when you're talking to your spouse, when you're talking to your children, when you're talking to a teammate, people on your team, your upline. It can really more of a 360-degree way of communicating, which will really help you become more effective. And man, imagine if we can become way more effective in communication, how much better our lives would be. And communication, just a simple definition, is not what you tell someone, it's what they hear from you. So you may have an intent to communicate something to somebody, but it's not important what you say. It's important to how they received it and what they understood you to say, right? So that to me is really more others focused and others centered than thinking that, yeah, man, I got that message out there and they loved it. But you don't know. And a lot of it will be determined by their feedback, their verbal expressions, their facial expressions. You'll get feedback if you're aware of it. And that's one thing that I know that I try to do, which is why doing in-person or at least Zoom calls will kind of give you a real way to gauge how someone's thinking, feeling, acting. And that's sort of this, you go into a mode of interacting with someone, but you have to kind of step outside yourself and view it as objectively as you can. It's, how's this person receiving me, right? And to me, that situational awareness, where your others focus, is one of the keys to empathy and compassion, because I think those are the underlying virtues of effective communication, right? So let's kind of go through this and run through this hopefully in half an hour. I'm hoping for half an hour. This is obvious. Everyone is different. They're not like you. And the fallacy is that people receive information the same way you do. That is absolutely not true. If you all know me, and when I talk about and teach neurolinguistic programming, the real key point of that whole idea of neurolinguistic programming is everyone has tendencies, but not everyone's the same. So everyone's different. They're not like you. A great way to learn communication is watch other people communicate. Like, be observant. When you see an interaction between two people, you can be very observant as to the type of conversation they're having. Like, people watch. This is like if you're in an airport, man, and you look at people interacting, whether the gate person and the traveler or two travelers, it's a great way to learn and kind of discern the body language, the way that they're interacting with each other. And it's clear the genders do it differently. Men do it way different than women. They did research on preschool kids. It was really interesting. What they found in this research, boys would sit next to each other and face the front of the room in a school while they're talking to each other. So they're kind of abreast, sitting, and they're kind of communicating like they're at a starting line or something. Girls would actually turn towards each other and face each other. And they say it's some type of evolutionary trait. I guess, when you're out there hunting, you want to be aware and you've got to be ready to react. Whereas the women would interact with each other. So it's kind of interesting how the genders with each other speak differently. Communication is the key to any relationship. How can you have a relationship if you don't communicate, if you don't communicate effectively? Really, the communication will be an indicator of where the future of that relationship is going, right? If there's a breakdown, if someone's not listening to the other person, well, that relationship's going downhill. This is so true. This is where I think people get messed up, is they automatically believe the greatest communicators were born with that talent, right? It's not true. Maybe there was some gift that they received, the gift of gab or whatever you want to call it, but it is definitely a skill. And what's great about this art of communication is that it's a skill that anyone can develop. It doesn't take talent per se. It takes practice and work, right? Feedback. Got to work at it constantly. So Carol Comfer, this author, came up with this LUV model. So the L in LUV stands for listen. Listening without the need to respond. Listening purely to hear what the other person is trying to say to you, right? You wait till someone's done speaking, and a great show of respect and a way to practice this is is wait, do a 3 count before responding. Wait till they're done. The worst communicator is the one that talks over people. That's when you know kind of it's an argument, because they talk before the other person is finished speaking. Great sign of respect is when you wait till they're done speaking and make their point and count to 3. Another one is give them space. Look, they're going to start talking again and they'll go deeper with you. They'll open up more to you if you give them space, meaning you might be talking, but until you validate that they heard you, you don't have any clue. So in other words, you got to give them space to respond. Like, shut up already, be quiet, and get them to respond. In fact, in sales, we call silence one of the great closing techniques, because when you ask an open-ended question, give them a chance to respond. And it doesn't matter if you're staring at them for 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you wait until they answer your question or they start talking. So you got to give them space, and it can be a very positive manipulation because people hate a vacuum. People hate silence. They want to fill silence, but you don't need to be the person filling that silence. Let the other person talk. Respond with questions. This is so true. People need to be heard, man. People need to sing their song, and you can be the best communicator when you just shut up and let people sing. Prompt them with questions, find out more about them. In fact, if you can get them to do majority of the talking, they're going to think you're the best communicator that ever lived, because people just want to be heard. So listen to them, hear them without regard to judgment. The worst thing you can do, especially when you're talking to your spouse, with your wife, okay, I'm the husband, talking to your wife, is want to fix everything. I'm a fixer. My kids know that about me. They start talking about stuff, I'm going to figure out how to fix whatever is the problem. That's my problem. That's why my kids, sometimes they edit what they tell me because they know I'm going to go into fix it mode. Like they tell me they have a problem with their car. I'll go to where they are and I'll fix it. They just know I'll do it. So don't feel the need to fix people. Let people talk. If they need your advice, they'll ask for it. And you don't give them advice. I'll get into that a little bit later. Kind of depends, but don't feel like you got to judge people to fix people, right? Let them speak. The book, you've heard of it. I'm sure you've heard of it. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus, right? That book really talks about the differences between men and women, and that will give you tremendous insights. That's a great relationship book for you and your spouse, but it's also a great communication book. Another good one is John Maxwell's Everyone Communicates, but Only Few Connect, I think. It's something like that. It's a great book as well. Give them space to talk. We talked about that already. Okay, so the U in love is understand. So there's listening, and then there's understanding. And there are things that you can show them that you truly are listening to understand them. And they're verbal and nonverbal cues. Verbal are, as an example, like, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more about that. Oh, no kidding. What do you mean by that? Seriously? I'm doing what I do all the time. Like, so if you know me, you know I do this to you all the time. Oh my gosh, dude, really? You know me? I use that one all the time because it's genuine, right? That's how I let people know that I'm hearing them. And then, understanding, also asking more questions for them to drive down deeper, because it just shows that you care. It really does. Nonverbal is, you're staring at them. You're looking into their eyes. I remember someone who mentioned that Bill Clinton was one of the best communicators, because when he was talking to you, he would make you feel that you're the only person in the room. That is a tremendous skill, that you're not, looking away all the time and checking out other people. And it drives the other person crazy when you're doing that, because it's a tremendous sign of disrespect. It just shows you're not interested in them. I would just stare in their eyes, not in a weird way, but I would focus on them, right? I would ignore everything that was going on around me. Even if someone's trying to talk to me, I would still focus. I might give that person the hand, because they know that I'm honoring my conversation with the person I'm talking to, right? So that's the good nonverbal is that you're staring at. That's one of the best ways, and that you're leaning in, that you're moving, you're forward leaning, you're wanting to catch every word. If it's a loud environment and my hearing isn't that good, I'm trying to read their lips too. All right, men will listen but won't give nonverbal and verbal feedback. Okay, that's stereotyping, but generally, the head nod, square up with them. So this is a neurolinguistic programming technique anyway. When you're kind of leaning away from someone and you're trying to talk like this, it's like, you're kind of listening to them, but you're not really engaged. When you do this and lean in, shows that you're engaged, right? It's this total body language practice that'll help you really make them feel important, that what they're saying is important to you. show them that you're listening. Seems obvious, but what's interesting is when you're zoning out on someone, they're just like talking, and your mind starts drifting to other things. What happens is your eyes start to glaze over and you're staring at them, but you're not really listening. And it just shows in how you're interacting with them. People can tell that you've just totally left the conversation. Even though you're facing them and you're leaning in, your eyes go glassy. Okay. You want to reflect back to them. So a great way of reflecting back to them, repeat back to them what they said. So if they said, man, that my agent, I'm complaining about an agent. My agent just left me with, well, I'm not going to go negative. Let's just say this. Oh, my agent just sold their first policy yesterday. And then repeat back to them. He sold his first policy? It is powerful when you say exactly, and then they start drilling down more. Yeah, Alex, he did. He sold an AIG policy for the first time as guaranteed issue, but he didn't know that before going in. He didn't know that? Yeah, he didn't know that. He just went through the application. All of a sudden, it led him down to the guaranteed issue, and he didn't have to really know much in the underwriting. He didn't know what he really was doing, but he got it done. Wow, he got it done. When you do the parrot thing, I promise you, that is one of the most effective ways to reflect back to them. And it shows that you're listening because you're saying exactly the same thing. Supportive words. It's like you can, like, what are supportive words? Wow, man, you must really, really be proud of them. So you get them to feel good that their agent sold a policy. You must really be proud. Wow, you found yourself one, didn't you? And I'm so fired up for you. Are you excited? The tenor of your conversation is positive. You're keeping them on a roll. You're keeping them up because they're just jacked up, man. You're not saying stuff like, but aren't you kind of afraid of a chargeback? Like if it doesn't. Supportive words, not words to bring them down. People are looking to be understood. They're not looking to be fixed. In general, right? The fixing part comes later when they start asking questions. But don't assume that you got to be Mr. Fix, especially if you're the upline and you feel like every time someone's talking to you, they're looking for coaching, even though they are looking for coaching. Don't feel like you got to give them the answer right away. And we're going to get to that part, I think, in the next slide. So L is listen, U is understand, V is validate. So validate them, validate what they're saying to you. You know, these are, again, reflecting words back to them like, wow, I really understand what you're going through. Now I really understand. Is giving them the idea that you're getting a deeper understanding. Gee, I see where you're coming from. Wow, that really hits me hard. Now we're going into the NLP words, visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. I really ought to integrate the NLP into this talk because the words you reflect back to the person will really hinge on how they like to receive information, whether it's visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. So people that are visual will use visual words. Like they'll tell you like, this is how I see how the situation is right now. They use visual words. They're visual information receivers. If they use auditory words, it's like, man, it didn't sound right to me. So use sound or auditory words, or they use kinesthetic words, which are feeling words. Man, I don't know. I don't feel good about this, Alex. So they're using feeling words. So the words you need to validate them are the words that you hear from them. So they use visual words. Oh man, I really can see where you're coming from. If they use auditory words, it's like, wow, that sounds amazing to me. If they use feeling words, then you use feeling words back to them. Wow, that hits me the same exact way. Once you master the power of NLP using the visual, auditory, and kinesthetic, man, you are jamming on communication. You'll be the master communicator for sure, but validate them. Here's the thing. So as a coach, sometimes they don't do this just for time's sake, but if you want to be effective coach, effective listener to your spouse or to your children, this goes way beyond just the business. If you know the answer to something, don't give them the answer. Make them discover the answer. An answer, the thing that they seek is more effective for them to discover it than for you to tell them the answer. Because you're assuming a lot when you tell them the answer, but when you get them by asking questions to discover the answer for themselves, it's more powerful, it's more impactful. The other thing about that, especially in sales, is they can't object to what comes out of their mouth, right? But they can object to what comes out of your mouth. When you say stuff like, well, I think you ought to take this 150,000 mortgage protection with a 50,000 universal life combination, I think that's going to be the best for you. In their mind, they got to evaluate this combo option and they have to believe you. And they got to ask these questions in their head. Do I trust what he's telling me? But if you start asking questions like, there's some really efficient ways to do this, you know that term policies, you're going to pay a lot lower cost per thousand. Does that make sense? And then you're going to have term. It's like renting an apartment for a period of time. It's going to be cheaper. And there's really good uses for term policies because, like your mortgage, how long does your mortgage last? 30 years. So you would only want to pay for a mortgage protection policy that will cover the length of the mortgage, right? Well, yeah, that makes sense. Do you think that after your mortgage is paid off, do you think you're going to need probably some insurance for final expenses or to pay off debts for your family, other things you want to leave like your kids? Well, yeah, that's what that's the real reason why I'm talking to you. Okay. Well, there's a combination program that would really get you what you want super efficiently. And it's the combo program. You said that you would really need a mortgage protection policy that would be super efficient, last 30 years, cover your mortgage, and be lower cost per thousand, right? Is that what I hear you saying? Well, yeah. But then you also need a long-term policy. So by asking questions, you get them to come to that conclusion on their own. So you guide them with questions like someone says, man, I'm just having a terrible time, booking appointments. Oh, wow. Well, tell me more about that, and then you can ask them questions like, when are you dialing? How often are you dialing? Do you have enough leads to dial? When are you dialing your leads? How many dials did you make yesterday? How many connects did you have? When you start asking these questions, they're going to start self-coaching. They're going to come up with, oh man, you give them a little bit of information to evaluate their answers. Like when you tell them, the average new person can dial about 30 to 40 dials an hour. Now you said you did how many dials yesterday? I did 50 dials. Okay. Are you working full-time or part-time? Full-time. So tell me when you were making those dials. Well, I'm dialing from 9 a.m. to, it's true, noon. That's interesting. So if you were doing about 30 dials an hour, that'd be 150 dials. So I'm kind of confused. You just shut up. Just shut up and let them, well, yeah, I was doing some other things. Oh, what other things were you doing? Do you see how you can just keep asking questions? They're going to come to their own conclusion that they aren't working efficiently, and that's the best way. They're 10 times more likely to remember that answer. They're going to create new neural pathways. And that's really how you get them to lock in what they discover, right? They're going to think deeper about what their problem is. Another good way to coach is, well, if you were me, what would you do? If you were me, what would you say to you? That is one of the best ways because they put themselves in my seat and then they look at their pitiful numbers and they could tell themselves, I just really didn't work hard enough, did I? I don't know. What do you think? See, I want to answer. What do you think? I don't think I did. Well, I mean, you said you want to make $2,000 a week, right? So if you were me, would you say that effort would produce $2,000 a week in commission income? No, but you got to do it. You got to be nice, nurturing. Don't ask it like an a-hole. You got to ask it the sincerity that you want to help them. And then ask them, well, so what do you think you ought to do to change that tomorrow? And then when they tell you exactly what you would have told them, it's like, that sounds like a great idea, man. So what times are you going to dial? See, it's a great way to hold people's feet to the fire, but you're validating what they're telling you and you're letting them come up with their own answers that will fix their situation. And so don't be so quick to answer questions. Be quicker to ask them. Okay, pain versus suffering, 129. Helping someone grow is not about taking away their pain, but helping them suffer less. No pain, no gain, right? But how much pain do you want them to suffer where they continue to wallow in their mediocrity? You have to be compassionate enough to help them to suffer less, but they still have to go through the pain of rejection, the pain of not getting results, the pain of not being successful. Because the only people that become successful are people that endure, people that have perseverance. And how are you going to ever let them persevere if they don't suffer the pain first? Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. And truly, pain can be the biggest teacher for people. Sometimes it's the best way. The only way people learn a lesson is when they suffer pain, right? But they don't have to extend the suffering longer than they need to. This is why we encourage agents to call us to set up coaching appointments, twice, 3 times a week, however long. If you're calling us 10 times a day from the client's home, glory, hallelujah, right? You're not trying to, keep the suffering going on. What drives me nuts are agents that will continue to suffer the pain of not being successful, and they'll wait a week or two on the verge of quitting before getting with me, right? And I could have fixed their suffering. I could help them fix their suffering a week, 13 days ago, if they just called me. But sometimes the ego gets in the way. The ego will be the reason. They don't want to look bad, or they think that they should figure it out or whatever. Actually, what they're doing is they're extending their suffering. Okay, you as the upline, you as the coach, man, I'm going to reemphasize this. Don't judge them. Even if you don't agree with them, you can still validate them. There are things that people tell me that I'll validate them. It's not like I want them to continue to fail, but at the same time, I want to preserve the relationship and preserve the openness of communication with them. I'm going to keep the lines open with them. So I'm not going to tell them that I don't agree, but I'll validate them. I go, wow, that's a great opinion. opinion. How'd you come up with that? How'd you arrive at that? Figure out where they came up with that idea. So you don't place your opinions on people. Find out how they came to their own opinion. Every single person is doing the best they can do with what they have. And so that's why it's important for you to discover why they came up with that idea. You can't just say, Alex, I'm thinking about marking my neighborhood with door hangers. Oh, wow, man, you're going to go, that's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool idea. Have you ever done that before? No. What gave you this great idea? Well, I saw a door hanger on my thing, Girl Scout cookies. And then I called them and got some, oh, okay, that's cool. A good deal. I mean, and they'll ask me, well, do you have a format? I go, well, I don't, just because I've never really taught that. That's something that we don't do. But look, I encourage you to do it if you really want to do that. Actually, gang, you don't know how many times I've had this door hanger conversation. Like I must have had it 100 times over my 24-year career. I say exactly the same thing. And honestly, I'm not against it. I am absolutely not against it. Sometimes you got to let them go through it and then not get any results from it. Hey, if they get results, God bless you, man. There's probably 30 neighborhoods that you can go to do that. I'm down. Okay. Results are what's key. If they're getting results with it, God bless them, man. But it's kind of like, how many Steph Currys are there at Caitlin Clarks that shoot the three in the NBA? 45% or better, versus how many people can do a layup. It's like, I'd rather not depend on a 3-point shooter. I want to find a good one, but I can't let everyone shoot from there. Again, don't judge. Everyone wants to be understood. They are where they are because of everything they live through in their lives. People come to the way they think because of all their life experiences, the books they've read, and the people they hang around. And you and I know that if they continue to do what they've been doing, they will never change what they're getting. So our job is to open up their mind a little bit through asking questions so they can change their way to think, so they can move forward in their lives. So you have to have this compassionate understanding of why they think the way that they think. If you don't have that, you'll never learn empathy, right? You'll never learn how to understand people. And like a great way to think about it is, man, if I grew up with the parents he had that abandoned him when he was young, and I lived the life he lived, I would probably be thinking the same exact way too. If you can have that understanding, right? Walk a mile in their shoes mode, you will be great at communicating. You don't want to fix them. You don't want to guilt them. You don't want to shame them. See, people remember how you made them feel, not even what you told them. You want to get them to feel like they can always come to you. You want to get them to feel like you can give them valuable advice without giving them advice. They think you're the best person because you guided them to their own advice. Again, everyone wants to be understood. Everyone wants to sing their song. They need an audience to hear them. And then your job is to help them to discover their path, where they need to go. Use I messages. Begin with, wow, I really see where you're coming from. Or I hear you, man. Wow, I really feel you. I feel where you're coming from. And then describe what you want to guide them towards in the form of a question. This is all classic Sandler questions, guiding them towards a solution that you think will work for them. But you got to do it in a way that they come to that conclusion. Show respect. Your tone of voice, man, you might be really pissed off because they should be way further, or they'd really disappointed you. You cannot let that show in your voice, because hearing that from you will make them feel terrible. They probably already feel bad. So you have to have that compassionate tone, because they probably already feel bad. Or they could be stubborn and think that they're right. And even though you know that they're completely wrong in their approach, doesn't make them a bad person. See, the whole idea of judging is, are you judging what they're doing or judging their character? The last thing you should be doing is judging their character. You can judge their actions, whether or not their actions are getting closer to where they want to go. And if they're doing something that's not getting them there, right, that's what you judge. But then you guide them. But you show respect to them as people. Like, everyone's a child of God. So treat everyone as such. They're my brother, they're my sister, right? I'm not going to treat them like an adversary. The adversary is Satan, and he's the enemy. So we got to remind ourselves, it's not the fact that they're Democrat, Republican. It matters if they're a child of God. The enemy's the enemy, right? We got to treat each other with respect. Avoid communication boulders. These are probably some of the most obvious ones. Sarcasm, put downs, a crabby voice. You go slash and burn on them. You talk really fast and you just want to light them up, man. Hostile criticism, using always and never. Those absolutes, man. People don't like always and never. In my experience, there's a lot of people that do this. This is where you go into the most people that I've encountered do this. You do that with clients. Most of my clients already have life insurance, but this is why they needed this policy. Don't say always or never. Blame game. Man, don't go into blame game mode. You go into blame game, then it no longer becomes their responsibility or yours. The blame game is putting the responsibility on on others. Certainly, they're not in control of everything that happens to them. What they are in control of is how they respond to what happens to them, right? And so blaming, pointing your fingers at other people takes you out of the equation. It's like you need to have everyone you're talking to take responsibility for how they can change their situation. Blame game doesn't get you there. Mind reading, oh my gosh, mind reading. You always want to clarify. Always pretend like you don't really know what they're thinking or how they're feeling. Always find out by asking. Flooding. Yeah, there's nothing worse than trying to make your point by flooding them with useless facts that it's useless because it's not going to convince them, right? You got to give them space. You got to pause. You got to give them gaps to think and consider, right? Stonewalling. Yeah, this is stubbornness. That's ego. Take offense. Yeah, take offense. Take offense is building a fence by not listening to what they're really feeling. You take offense to what they say, don't automatically respond because there's a reason why they're coming to that conclusion. It's like when you take it personally, if it's really directed at you, take a breath and be open. Don't automatically think that you're always right. Maybe someone did feel a certain way about what you said. It gives you a chance to apologize. Take your ego out of it. Don't dump on people. And then when they start dumping on you, there are really classic ways of handling how people are dumping on you. You can say something, oh, wow, really? Oh, man. Can I ask you a question real quick? That's how you kind of move the conversation more to positive, right? They start dumping. They're listening to it more than you are. And that's what's worse is they hear their negative. It just reinforces the negative. So the way you just kind of do a classic interrupt. Oh, wow. Hey, can I ask you a real quick question? Pattern interrupt. I was thinking about this the other day and you just ask them whatever. I take them off it, redirect them. It's like giving a crying baby that's going to a tantrum another toy. All of a sudden they're focused on the toy and they're not crying anymore. It's that idea. Be assertive, but don't be aggressive or passive. Okay, it's a fine line, but it's a fine line you have to practice so you can get stuff done because you don't want to just sit there all day and get nothing done. Passivity is as worse as being overly aggressive. Use the 5 most important words often. I love you and I'm sorry. Those are 5 important words, especially when you're having obviously more important conversations with people that you're close to. But the I'm sorry one is an important one. A real I'm sorry. Oh man, 142. Okay. A real I'm sorry, not the fake I'm sorry. You know what I'm talking about. So hopefully that helped as far as this whole notion of communication. And anyway, gang, trust me, you practice this, your results in sales, your results in building and recruiting are going to go through the roof. I promise you.